abilities are bread and butter of video games. Special moves which enhance your experience by expanding moveset of your character. This makes games more complex and strategic to play, as you have more tools to use at your disposal. Having to choose between one and the other or managing resources those abilities use gives both a challenge and an opportunity to show your skill. Furthermore, more abilities usually mean more fun than no abilities. Additional factors make the game less boring and way more engaging. So it is no surprise that abilities in some form or another found their way to every genre. In platformers, such as Ori and the Blind Forest for example, abilities are mainly additional movement options you unlock throughout the experience. They increase the difficulty ceiling of the game by giving you an option to set up more complex and satisfying combos, while ensuring you need to sweat a little to perform them. They are what guides the progress of this white and satisfying creature from the base jump state to your final form, which feels like it doesn't really need to touch the ground. They are the indicators of progression, ways to show off your skill, and the main source of your in-game satisfaction. In other genres, however, designing abilities may not be as straightforward. Take Overwatch, an ability hero shooter. Here too, abilities may give additional movement options, ways of dealing damage or utility. Yet the main difference is the fact that there is more than one ability user on the field. If you made one of Ori's abilities too strong, the game may come out easier, but probably not much easier. Here, if one of the character's abilities is too strong, the problem grows exponentially. Don't believe me? Then let me tell you about that one time when this character was introduced. She's named Brigitta, and to make the argument simple, she is a support and can heal multiple people around her at once, so basically has an AoE heal. Same as this character and this one. Adding a third AoE healer to the game enabled players to play 3 of them at once, with 3 tank heroes, and thus creating an indestructible ball of never-dying flesh, which rolled freely on the servers for many months. The developers couldn't tackle this issue in any way until they banned such stacking altogether, enforcing team comps of 2 tank, 2 support and 2 DPS. Ability combos are a really strong feature, and thus often make games relying on multiple ability users, such as multiple players in multiplayer games, so difficult to balance and get right. It is thus imperative to be able to fix them easily and quickly, change or maybe remove an ability altogether. It also serves another point, which is ability interactions. What happens if an unmovable object is targeted by unstoppable force? You guessed it, bugs. In an ideal world, abilities would be in fact very simple. If you were a developer, you would just fill out the form, changing damage numbers and ticking some boxes to receive a new ability. The world isn't that colorful, unfortunately. The abilities are much complex than that. Or are they? You see, developers need some archetypes not to get crazy. Take the best ability balancing hell there is on the market right now. League of Legends. With 161 champions, having on average 5 abilities, including the passives, this game is a beast. Still, the abilities are more or less similar. But how to even compare that to that? Well, let's divide abilities into a few stages. First one is targeting. How are you able to hit something? Or what are you targeting when choosing how to use your spell? The second part is animation. So what visual restrictions are laid on top of you using an ability? And third one is the effect. So when the ability connects with its target, whatever the target may be, what does it do? First, let's take a look at targeting in League of Legends. So how to hit? Ability may be point and click, meaning you may target an enemy or an ally with it by hovering your mouse above this person and clicking your left mouse button. Targeting may take a form of a fan in front of you. The developers can adjust its length and its angle. So whether it's, it may be a rectangle in front of you with a given length and width. It may be a circle with a given radius. You decide where to cast, on the ground or with origin on your character. You may see that these abilities are then in fact the same. But Timothy, they aren't. One is traveling with a given speed and one dealt damage instantly. Yeah, so that is another factor besides targeting. Is the ability a projectile? If so, is it a homing projectile, so that it follows its target? For example, all auto attacks in this game are homing projectiles. Unless they are melee, then the damage is dealt after the animation ends. In League, there are two main possibilities. Our ability either aimed at hitting a creature, so an ally, an enemy, a minion, a jungle monster, etc., or it aimed at spawning something, even if there is an AoE spell which persists, like this. It's really a spawn. The ability ends when it spawns this, and then it's the spawned thing that is interacting with the game environment. And this spawned object may either block someone because it has a hitbox, teleport you, or do what normally targeted ability would do, so hit an enemy, target an ally. So let's then unpack this part. We hit someone, either with a spawned thing or just with our ability. What happens next? Well, ability triggers all sorts of effects, such as knock-up, stun, slow, etc. Again, it's good to have a finalized list of those effects first, so that now we can ensure that all of those trigger properly and not add like another effect 5 years into development, right? Then the ability deals damage, heals, gives shields, or applies some sort of effect, which we will not get into, not to lose our sanities scrolling through 10,000 effects this game has, some of them have being like 10 paragraphs long to understand. But in fact, this is the easy part from the programming perspective, because effects are just numbers with visual indicators and are way easier to code, change and design than the targeting or animations, because there is less visuals, there is no human input. We know everything that is happening, it's just numbers. When we get to that point, we are golden. Alright, we more or less figured the scheme of how abilities in League of Legends work. Let's get through a few examples and see if they match. This one is an ally shield. It's quite simple. So using our rules, it is basically a point and click targeting, with exception to be used on allies and not enemies only. It is instant, so no animation problems. As an effect, it shields and changes movement speed parameter of a target. This one is a little bit more complicated, because it targets both enemies in a rectangle and yourself. It is a projectile, so it hits after a delay, synchronized with animation, but the on you effect triggers instantly, so it's like a dual ability. In case of enemies, it deals damage and fears them. In case of you, it moves your character forward and takes away player controls until the animation is over. It's not noticeable in game for like half a second, but it has to be done for the ability to look good. It is what it is doing under the hood, you know? Now this is an interesting one that will move us forward in our inquiry of how abilities in video games should work. Look at it. It is targeting enemies with a fan, okay, is a projectile, and deals damage on effect. Quite simple. However, you can see the camera movement is added in the beginning, plus it has 4 charges to use it. You can easily tell this one is one of many exceptions from the rulebook we have designed. So imagine that. You are a game maker, okay? And your designer comes to you with this idea of this character. He's called Jin. So he comes to you and says, I have idea for this Jin guy and I want his ability to do what you are seeing now. And you are like, all right, it breaks a few of my rules, so I will have to either manually change this certain character to override my rules, or I will have to change all of my rules altogether to be suited for this character. So I will add another parameter saying how many projectiles do you like send before the ability ends, and if there is a camera movement in the beginning of the ability with a delay of its use. So the override is way easier to do, because with the second part we have to adjust 161 characters to do it, despite they are actually not doing it, because they were designed like first, so we won't add the camera movement to them retroactively. They won't be using it at all. There will be no difference in the game, but there will be a lot of work for us to make it happen, okay? The plus side is that if we change our rulebook to be prepared for the Jin case, let's call it that, we will be able to add more Jins easily. So more characters with this camera thing, more characters with this many bullets thing, right? So which one would you choose? Well, I am something of a game maker myself and recently encountered this exact problem. Having an ability rulebook is very handy. You design a game around things characters can and cannot do. It keeps it coherent and concise. Unfortunately, as the League of Legends sniper example showed us, changing this rulebook later when more characters are introduced is quite labor intensive, because you have to adjust the logic of every other mechanic to work with newly imposed rules. That's why I knew that it is extremely important to design as good of a rulebook as possible, and to do it in a way that changing it requires the smallest amount of work. Let's then try to think about everything abilities should and shouldn't be able to do in Primal Fray. First, we have to think of two elements that I have already implemented. Elements so simple, they had to be present. They are walking and single target attacks. Primal Fray is a turn-based game, and each turn is divided into two steps. First one is movement and the other is attack. So in the simplest of simple cases, you have to be able to walk and punch. What I figured during implementation of those was the fact that targeting will be quite simple in my game, in contrast to League. Everything is based on a grid, so I never attack enemies. I never target them. I always target hexes. I can check whether the hex is a water hex, or an empty hex, or a hex occupied by a primal, or occupied by a blockade. You get the point. If I want to punch someone, I can target a hex occupied by an enemy. If I want to buff my ally, I can check if hex is occupied by an ally. If I want to create a new hex, I can check if the hex is empty. I will want to create new hexes, to create blockades, to destroy hexes. I want the map to be adjustable. And I can easily do that while targeting hexes. And the game will work, and I will be able to add many ability variants of it. If you watch my previous videos, you know that people went crazy about the water freezing primal. The ice golem I have right now is supposed to be able to freeze water. So I have to target a hex, check if it's water, so if it's water hex, and then be able to freeze that. And with that assumptions I can, because it's in my rulebook, you know. What is certain, however, is the fact that I will have to change the rulebook, and many times while we're at it. Right now I have a single functioning primal, and it would be very naive to assume I would never add things I haven't thought of. For example, right now I am working on a moth character, and I wanted to have a push AoE spell, so like pushes everyone around him. But right now both push and AoE are impossible to implement in my game using my method. But I do not falter, because I think with what I have set up is quite easy to add those. Let me walk you through it. First of all, there will be only one primal object in the whole game. It's this one. It has its own primal logic written in a way that it will work with any primal in the game. So if it was the case in League of Legends, you would have this one character archetype, which would be able to both use Jin's abilities, Hekarim's abilities, every ability in the game, and interact with everything in each way, because it's so flexible. It's a base primal I will make clones of and send information to this clone. So I will tell this clone, you are nice golem, you have this much HP, your team is team 1, so you are part of a blue team, and you will have ability to walk, to punch, to freeze lake, and to shield yourself, okay? I tell him that at the beginning of combat, and then he acts as a nice golem, but under the hood he is the base primal, like every other primal in the field. So what may be interesting to you is the way I write those abilities. So let me walk you through it. This is my primals data. It's an object in which I store info about all my primals. You can see right now it has only one object. And this object is my ice golem. This name is used to load all the portraits and animations, so that the game knows which primal is it. And here I have some base stats, for example HP. What's beautiful about it is that I can change it quite quickly, and also if I want to add more stats right here. So if I ever will want some primals to start with shields, I will be able to just add shields here, and all the primals in the primals info will get the place to write how much shields they start with, okay? What's interesting about my system is that each primal has 4 abilities. I can show you them in game. So he has these 2 move abilities. One is movement, so he can go. The other, then it's the attack ability, and he can attack. It's like the base. But also he has the movement ability, this one, to freeze leg, and then to shield himself. So these 4 abilities. And remember, I have only one primal object, and in the beginning it doesn't know what abilities it has, or if it's even an ice golem. So my primal's data object has to show it somehow, and I have it written here. Ability 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's look at ability 1. It is called Ice Move. Again, this name is so that I can load a proper icon here. Then I have a checkbox, Is Move. This tells my program that this ability should move my primal. Okay, so if it was flight or teleportation, it would also have Is Move checked. Then I have these 2 lines, which is special effect movement, special effect attack. This one indicates none, that it is a movement ability and that it has no special effects. If you look at the other ability like Freeze Lake, it isn't move, but it has special movement ability because it is used in the movement phase called Freeze Lake. Code in the primal prefab, the move primal code, if you use this one, checks whether you changed the special movement ability, and if it is a certain movement ability, it checks which one and then executes this ability. So he checks, oh, you used the ability and it has tag Freeze Lake, so I will now proceed to Freeze Lake, you know? Going further, there is a cost. I haven't implemented mana costs yet, but the system is ready for that. And I also have target. So movement targets tile. Freeze targets tile, okay? If we look at the attack, it targets primal. Also, there is, I will hide those. Let's now compare this attack to the shield. Both targets primals, or this is written self, yeah. But this one targets enemy and this one not. And this one has distance 0, so basically what it means, distance 0 is like yourself, okay? So this what target self means. If it had distance like 5 and had target primal, I would then be able to target my allies with a shield. Let me just change it real quick for you. Okay, as you can see, I've changed the target to primal and distance to 5. It is still target enemy is unchecked. So now this primal moves, and if I want him to use shield, he won't be able to use it on himself, but he will be able to use it on his ally, and now he will shield him, okay? It goes without saying that I can also change the damage. So in shield's case, it just means how much shield he gets to like 100, and when I reset this and use the shield, he will get a lot of shields, like it's a full bar of shields. I can of course change many things. I can change the attack, for example. If I make it 20 range and like 100 damage, which I can do, I will be able to just punch my enemy through the whole map and kill him in one shot, right? It's so easy to change using these. The main idea is that I will be able to write every ability in this way and just feed those abilities to my primal object and maybe exchange those and do all sorts of things with it, and it should always work because it is written so smartly. So as you can see, the system isn't perfect. There is no way to write AoE factor in there yet, or if the ability pushes primals around. But if I wanted to change that, I can just add this option to be pushed and to push others to the primal logic and adjust newly created AoE tick box in my data project. So future changes should be painless, I hope. Thank you for sticking with me till the end of this ability deep dive. I hope I gave you some developer perspective on abilities and why they are so difficult to implement. However, that would be all from me today. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up or a comment giving me some feedback. Other than that, just jump into my Discord, where we can chat some more and share insight on game making. Thank you all for watching, and see you around next time.